Hey everyone, Drew here, and today we are going to look at this year's holiday banners. Based on my data from the SSR World Rankings, I will try to answer the question which banner you should pull on and rating each of these 11 banners out of 100 points. Let's get started with banner A, and this one is the Endless banner. We have 2 Endless resets and 2 Endless asterisks on this one, and unfortunately all of them are really past their prime. Dark Reset was really good at the beginning of 2.0 and the other ones were already pretty average back then. So yeah, not much to say on this one. This one actually gets a rating of 2 points out of 100. So if you're not after fellowships or something, or are for some reason kind of sentimental or melancholic about Evertale's past, then I would highly recommend you skip this banner. The next banner is a Storm one. We have Original Anya here, Storm Corlin, Storm Antares, Storm Ossia, and Sun Wukong, and overall that's a pretty decent package. None of these units are really bad. Arguably, Storm Antares and Sun Wukong are the best of the bunch, but you can't really go massively wrong with the other 3 either, and this banner gets 55 points. Banner C actually has this kind of underground world vibe going, is mostly poison, but we also have Infernal Musha in here, and she really kind of sticks out negatively. Not only is she a fire unit, so if you're actually after a poison unit, getting her from this banner would be a bad outcome for you, but also she's not really a strong fire unit, so even if you are after a strong fire unit, that is not the banner you want to pull on, even if you want to push your luck. So all in all, kind of a weird mix here. I mean, we have Dark Chain, which is still a very strong unit. We have Earth Anya, who is this kind of poison 100% guard, who is also very strong. And then we also have a Dark Rainer, who is also a good unit. Dark Corlin, really not so much anymore, although she's still better than someone like Infernal Musha, I would argue. Overall, this banner gets 46 points. Now, banner D only has 4 units and is kind of a sleep banner, but arguably 3 of these sleepish units are pretty universally applicable. The only one that sticks out, and that also from a true power perspective, is a Bunny Reset, and she's still quite a decent unit to use in a sleep team, but other than that, she would be a bad pull, 25% chance that you pull her. On the other hand, we do have a top 3 unit in Water Snow White, who is super strong with that kind of stealth skill set and counter skin and deadly sleep. And then we also have Water Corlin, who is arguably more of a disruptor and support unit than a sleep unit in itself. Very good as well. And then we also have Earthray, who is still a decent unit and can be used in many teams where you want to abuse an entry effect of a movable unit. All in all, a very strong banner with a bit of risk due to Bunny Reset. This one gets 59 points. Now, banner E is kind of a spirit mix for the most part, except for Light Hibiki maybe. We have Light Musha, the new unit, Tiamat, and Sakura, as well as the number 1 support unit from 2021, which is Light Mirai. And there's a bit more downside on this banner. I'm not really convinced yet about Tiamat, especially with the new units being released, kind of being able to abuse her even more. And Light Musha, always kind of a difficult pick, even though she has Hold Ground Plus. She could help the enemy, and that's always something kind of icky. We do have Sakura, who is a decent unit. We have Light Hibiki and Light Mirai, who are arguably the strongest units on this banner. But all in all, this is just gonna be 39 points from me. One plus of this banner that has to be mentioned though is that pretty much all of these units can be helpful to your team already at just one copy, so that is something to keep in mind. Now the F banner is, funnily enough, the Fire banner, and this one mixes a lot of different era units together. Basically we have Fire Hibiki, who was already released over 2 years ago and is kind of outdated at this point. We have Fire Antares, who was released in spring this year, also not a great unit even if you account for wanting a fire unit. Then we have Fire Mirai from last year's Halloween, who is decent as a fire unit, but also not something that you absolutely need, except if you run fire, then she's probably a good pick. And then we have Fire Elmina, by far the strongest unit of these 4, just released a few weeks ago, and she has that kind of burn, stun, entry, and pretty good AI handling, I would argue, can be even potentially used in non-fire teams. So that one is kind of the saving grace for this banner. Unfortunately, if you're not running fire, but even if you do, I'm not sure if you should pull this banner. This one gets, based on my data, just 20 points. Now banner G is the Bride banner pretty much. We have Lightcaller and we have Bride Astrid, Water Jean and Michaela, and Fire Ray and Bride Ludmilla. So we have 2 tanks in this one, 2 strong sleep units and 1 fire unit. A bit of a risky mix here, especially again because the fire unit in this bunch, as with Infernal Musha earlier, is the weakest unit here, but all in all pretty decent chances, because 80% of the time you will get a very strong unit, and 3 of them, that is Bride Astrid, Bride Ludmilla and Water Jean, can probably be easily used in any team, and even Lightcaller isn't too difficult to apply either, especially if you already run someone like Water Snow White, then this could already be a good combination. And Fire Ray is a pretty decent burn unit, for burn, quite strong. So all in all, this banner gets a 56 points rating. Now banner H is absolutely massive. The drawback here is possibly for many that you already have some of these units fully awakened. More on that disclaimer later in that video, but just in itself, rating these characters, it's very easy to see that this is a good one. We have the number 1 and number 2 from my world rankings, Earth Musha and Storm Almina here. Absolutely strong and dominating stealth units. Then we have someone like Mitsuchi, who is an absolutely great finisher with her counter hold ground and the time drain plus. And we have Freya, who is also a hold ground plus unit, arguably the strongest, or at least one of the strongest fire units in the game, but easily applicable in any team. And then kind of as a 5th unit, we have a unit that was very, very strong still about 1 year ago, and now not so much anymore. Dark Snow unfortunately already fell from the top 28 in my rankings, but she's still not a very bad unit, so the downside is rather low, and there's an 80% chance that you get an absolute top unit for your team. All that said, the banner rating for H is 77 points, and that is the best rated banner by a big difference. Banner I is basically the Dark Poison 2022 banner, and it contains Dark Rin, Shuten Daoji, Dark Alice and Dark Ossia. All of them are pretty good picks for a poison team. Unfortunately, poison teams aren't doing extremely well right now, and none of them will actually blow you out of the water and carry you to the top. So while the downside here, if you want, to build a further poison team, is rather limited, the upside is as well, and all that kind of culminates in a rating of just 27 points for this banner. Just 2 more banners to go, and we have banner Shay here, and this one has a pretty mixed group, but it's basically mostly units that support your other units. So we have Earthlord Miller, who has this kind of auto barrier and give turn plus. We have Momoka, who becomes a guard sometimes and applies some charms for your other teammates. We have Lightlord Miller, who is the original SSR 100% guard. And we have Theo, who has this kind of healing pulse and super heal, etc. Kind of nice earth support unit. And we also have Light Haku, who arguably is the follow-up on the 2021 Light Mirai. Now we have another great light supporter, which is Haku, who has very cheap give turns and can produce a lot of spirit for you while healing your teammates. Now, all that said, they are all supporters and won't really carry you to any victories, and some of these units are weaker than others. All in all, this banner gets a rating of 35 points. And here we have the last banner, K, and this one is a bit more difficult to assess. We have 2 new units here that basically just have some estimates in regards to their true power yet. And we also have someone like Light Jean, who is an outdated unit at this point. Of course, over 2 years ago, she was dominating manual PvP, but those times are over and there's much stronger units now, so she's definitely the weakest of these 4. And then we also have Merlin, who is also not a really great unit. She was kind of this follow-up on Stormrelosha, but Stormrelosha still has some advantages over her, of course some disadvantages as well, but all in all, not a really strong unit, I would argue, and that means you are left with a 50% downside. I mean, to be fair, Merlin is a unit where 1 copy can also already help you a lot, and so this is something of an advantage over some of the other banners or units. But all in all, yeah, Merlin not really that great. And then of course we have Gawain and Lancelot, both of them quite promising. I would argue Lancelot even more promising than that. But the question is, do you wanna get that downside of Light Jean and arguably Merlin as well? And also Gawain, there's still some questions in regards to her AI efficiency. So all these things considered, the current rating, which is a bit preliminary for this banner, is 41 points. Now that was the review of all the banners. Of course, there are some caveats. First up, of course, you need to have paid soul stones, so you need 1000 of them to pull on one of these banners and actually get this kind of guaranteed SSR. And then there's also the downside of potentially already having some of these units on these banners fully awakened, and that absolutely needs to be taken into account. Of course, if, for example, Banner H, which from a true power perspective is the strongest with 77 points, if you already have Earth Musha and Storm Elmina fully awakened, then that really changes the view. Of course, Freya and Mitsuchi are really good as well, but the downside is much bigger because you basically have 0 points advantage if this banner turns out to give you Storm Elmina or Earth Musha. So of course there's a big incentive to pull on banners where you actually still could potentially use all the units. Of course there are some duds in some of these banners. That said, pretty much all the top 28 units that I have in my rankings are available on these banners. The only top 28 units that aren't available on any of these banners are Earthalira, who is ranked 26, and Stormrelosha, who is ranked 28. I hope this helps you decide which banner to pull on. If you have any more questions, maybe for your specific situation in regards to the banners and what the data would say for your case, just feel free to ask them in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to become a true carrot, joining the largest growing carrot field on YouTube. And as always, thanks for watching.